Hey, everybody. We are so glad you are with us for the Strong Suit today. And this is our third episode. And it has been a lot of fun talking with Jakob Schweiger, Clifton Strengths coach extraordinaire. Jacob, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling excited. I've never done what we're about to do, so it's going to be a learning experience for all of us, including the audience.
Okay. All right. I like learning experiences. They're my favorite kind. And I like not knowing what's going to happen. So, all right.
Friend,
That's right, that's right. All right, so if you guys are watching, with us today, jump in the chat. This is not a passive thing. We'd love to have you say hello in the chat. Just drop in and put your name in. Say one thing maybe you're excited about for this week, and, I think that'll be enough to get us, going. We're gonna do something really interesting today. And I will say that Jacob had this idea. Jacob, tell everybody what the idea is, and then we're going to introduce our guest.
so I thought about one of the things when people take the assessment, then typically they're left alone with the book afterwards, and it's kind of hard to get a grasp on what does that actually mean. And if I'm not really a bookworm, it's kind of hard to move forward from this point. So one of the things I do during my coachings is I sit down typically for an hour and a half and do an extensive debrief of the results to make sure the individual understands of what we're actually working with. And today we'll do that in an abbreviated version.
That's awesome. All right. So we're going to introduce our guest today. Ben, why don't you step in here? This is Ben Miles. And Ben, I am super excited that you were willing to join us today. You're fearless. So welcome.
I like it, fearless. I'm excited to be here. Jacob, thanks for doing this, and Lance, thanks for setting it up.
You bet. All right. So I have to ask you, Ben, first of all, what was it that made you agree to go through this, or what prompted your interest in your Clifton strengths?
Yeah, so Jacob's in my networking group. That's where I learned about Clifton Strengths. Simultaneously, one of my mentors actually recommended that I get the Clifton Strengths done, and it was right around that time that Jacob reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to take the assessment. So I went ahead, I got it knocked out, and then I got all this data. And I said, well, how do I make sense of this? I have some ideas based on what I'm seeing, but no better person than Jacob to speak to do a deeper dive and better understand, how I work best.
It's awesome. Cool. All right. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up my notes. That's the first thing I'm going to do. We're going to first do the reveal, putting that in quotes, and big picture domain read. Jacob, that sounds like something you must have written in my notes because I don't know what any of that is. Walk us through this thing.
That's a fancy way of saying let's get to know Ben. That's
Okay.
the easiest. Before we basically do that reveal and look at your report, what will help us, Ben, is if you tell us a little bit in, let's say, maybe 2 or 3 minutes about your background. What is your current occupation and kind of how did you get from, let's say, college where you started to where you are right now? So that we kind of know what is the background that we're ultimately working with. Just give us the cliff notes.
Sure. So going all the way back, I come from a large family, one of seven. I'm the middle child. So I think a big component of that is cutting deals. Back when I was a kid, looked very different than what I do today. In terms of career, I got into sales when I was 17. I never really looked back. I got a few hours at Greenville Tech on the college front, but really ever since I was 17 years old, I've been connecting companies or individuals who have problems with solutions. So that connector component really stuck out to me on the assessment. In terms of the career, more specifically, I started in as a broker of a very different kind. I was connecting companies that had freight with truck drivers who wanted to haul freight. So getting something from point A to point B. From there, I moved more to tech sales. So I was working with companies, helping them understand how their workflows worked, but in most cases, how they didn't work for them, and getting them the right software to solve those problems. And that leads me to where I am today as a commercial licensed agent here in South Carolina, where I help business owners and investors purchase, lease office properties.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And whenever I'm looking down, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm just taking notes so I have a chance to actually refer back to them later
I
because
trust you.
there's I have a good memory, but there's a limit to everything. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at your results. I will go ahead and share my screen here in a second. Let's get that over. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Lance. So this is basically a result. And the first thing that pretty much everybody dives in is, oh, let's take a look at what we have here at the bottom. Wrong approach. We will not do that. So the important thing about Clifton Strength in general is it's rooted in positive psychology. So let's focus on what's right with people versus what's wrong with people. Because once we focus on where people already are naturally strong, we have a chance for exponential growth. And it's ultimately when you're good at something, you enjoy doing it. If we hammer down the weaknesses, uh, people will dread it, they will hate it, and they will probably never become excellent in that area. So, to take a look at the big picture first, is I typically do not start here on the first page, but I start on this tile page here. That's page 21. What you see here overall, you lead with relationship building in here. This is basically here a weighted bar that takes all of the answers into account from the entire assessment and says this is how you can best contribute to a team. So, in this case, whenever you work in a team, you are more, let's say, the glue of the team, making sure that everybody is taken care of, and a very personable person that makes sure the team is taken care of, but it also helps you to ultimately build relationships with other people, regardless of if they're in your team or not. So, you're basically a natural relationship builder in here. Then, followed by strategic thinking, influencing, and executing. Don't worry that executing is here the lowest and smallest one. That just means you don't have the typical execution talents high, but you can absolutely execute by using your relationship building themes and your strategic thinking themes. And we may have a chance to get into that as well. But that's basically the big picture in here. Any questions to that right now?
Not from my side. Anybody in the chat, feel free.
Yeah. So if you, as the audience, have any kind of questions, drop them in. At the end, we'll hopefully have a few minutes to kind of get back to those questions if there's a curiosity to dive deeper into anything in here. So today, what we'll do is we'll focus on the top 5 in here as a big picture in here. About 90% of our awake time is heavily influenced by our top 10. That's why in a regular coaching session, I focus on those top 10. Then we basically have our 11 through 29, which are our supporting talents, meaning we're perfectly capable of executing on them and doing them. They just take a little bit more energy out of us than we get back compared to working in our top 10. If we can really capitalize on our top 10, work doesn't feel like work. It's fun. We enjoy it. It's rewarding and we're successful. And then lastly, we have the area of weaker talents. This just means they are even more draining than your supporting talents. But if those do not get in the way of you being successful in your personal life or in your professional life, we will never look at them. So that's what we also mean when we focus on the positive side of things, the positive psychology. Let's really hone in on our top 5 in here, which are in bold. That's also your so-called signature themes in here. My goal for our next probably 18 minutes is to briefly walk through them, see if we can kind of spend equal time on all of them or if we hone in a little bit more. If you're interested, Ben, that goes also back to what you ultimately want to get out of this. Deeper understanding of a theme or just say, hey, no, I think I already got that. Let's move on to the next one. The way we're going to go through each of the themes is I'll give you a very high level definition, kind of the general understanding of a theme, and then we'll see how that basically shows up for you personally in there. Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So the first one that we have in here is ideation. Ideation is a strategic thinking theme, and Lance can very much relate to that one. It's all about coming up with ideas. You basically, whenever you walk down the street as a person high in ideation, you probably have an idea of, hey, this could be improved. I have an idea of what we could do here. I thought about a client interaction I had last week, and I have another idea what we could be related to business, to your personal life, could be useful or entirely useless. We don't know. And that's one of the things with Clifton Strength when we develop a talent, something that is raw, into a strength, that means we can actively control that strength. And when you have ideation in its raw form, that means you're basically a fountain of ideas. And when we have that in a strength form, then you have very goal-oriented ideas that help you with whatever priorities you currently have and whatever challenges you may have right now to solve those. So really use that in a target and goal-oriented way in here. So in general, ideation has to do with creativity, thinking outside of the box, and coming up with solutions or connections that other people typically do not see. How does
Jacob, can I jump in here?
push?
So Ben, when you hear ideation, the way Jacob just described it, does that resonate with you? Like, does that sound how you function in life?
Absolutely. I spend a lot of time thinking, optimizing. Most of the books that I've read have been around sales, and I spend a lot of time in the books. I like to learn my craft. I like to think of ways that I can optimize what I do. I brought that to me with virtually every role that I've ever had. At one of the companies I worked at, I had a list of sales books or a stack of sales books right on my desk. I called it the library, and I would refer to it often, but some of my colleagues would even lift books off there and read through them as well. So that absolutely does resonate.
Cool. Jacob, I could be wrong because I'm new to this, but is there a hint at number 3 there from what Ben just said?
That actually what you described right now, Ben, is also your input. Let's dive into input real quick. Lance, thanks for that segue.
Yeah.
So somebody high in input, which is also a strategic thinking theme, is a collector of all sorts. That can be knowledge, that can be, I don't know, a stamp collection. It's people that like to accumulate information that may be useful right now, may not be useful, may be useful in the future, may be useful for me, may be useful for other people. So they love to kind of gather disjointed pieces of information when it's a raw form, or very organized and target oriented pieces of information that they can then share with other people. And the funny thing is what you just said is with the sales books that you had on your kind of desk and other people were diving in. How did it make you feel when somebody was walking up to us and say, "Hey Ben, I think you have a cool book on your desk. Can I borrow that?"
Oh, it was great. It was great. I'm a big believer in investing in yourself and in your career. And one way of doing that is through books. So seeing other people do it was really satisfying.
Yeah. So people high in input, they get a satisfaction when they're able to share information with the rest of the world. They say, "Hey, I read a cool book," or "There is a YouTube channel that you need to start watching." So being very resourceful is a core trait of somebody high in input. And I actually had a question noted here for your input theme that I was curious to see. Um, with you collecting a lot of information, you probably collect more information than other people. If you look around your fellow commercial real estate colleagues, what is one thing that you collect that they may not see an immediate value in, but you think, hey, this is going to be important? Did that ever happen?
It does. It does. I take copious notes when I have phone calls with clients, and I like to do Zoom call or Google Meet calls with a transcription on there. That really helps me to collect information. It makes it easier for me to take notes while we chat, so I'm not there buried in writing down every piece of information. I can go back to the transcript outside of that, and I refer back to that all the time. While that is a feature that everybody has access to, it's something that I absolutely live by.
Mhm.
Lance is smiling over there.
Yeah, I mean, before automatic note takers, I struggle so badly taking notes and like capturing things or collecting things. So this is not something I naturally relate to at all, but it's fun to see this in your own strengths or talents, as Jacob has told us. Talents.
Yeah. And so to kind of move us forward as well is let's stay with input real quick. So one thing that you can kind of start working on further developing that input is think about what are some of the resources you currently possess that you can actively share with other people. Because for other people to kind of come to you and ask for help or ask for input, they need to know what you have. So one of the big things is kind of sharing with your coworkers, with other people, with your network, what you have so that they can actually tap into you as a resource and you can provide them with additional value in here.
Jacob, I have so Ben, you already done this once in a circle that I'm in. So we were all in a networking group together, and I remember that we were talking about how to do better with giving referrals, and you were like, "Hey, I've built a spreadsheet of leads and contacts and so forth. I'd be happy to share that with anybody." So it's like a good example of you already implementing some of that stuff that Jacob's describing, connecting with people and saying, "Here's something that I have that's really valuable."
Yeah. Yeah, it was second nature to me to do that. I meet
Yeah.
with a lot of people, and most of the people that I meet with, they wanna meet more people. So I'm happy to do that, and especially for our networking group, putting together that spreadsheet, was a no-brainer for me. Thanks for calling that out, Lance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what we're basically doing today is technically when we work with Clifton Strength, it's a three-part concept called name it, claim it, and aim it. So today we talk about the name it and claim it piece, which is basically naming it, making sure we get an understanding of all of those. And the claiming piece is when we dive into those talents and see how they show up for you, that you see like, oh yeah, this is me. And I show up as somebody who likes to give input as well. And the third step, also as part of coaching, is how do we identify more opportunities for you to actively lean into that so that you can benefit the rest of the team and you get that satisfaction as well because you're good. You can identify opportunities where you can share certain resources with people. So this is the entire idea behind this.
Nice.
Um, Good. That basically takes care of our ideation, our input right now. I would say let's move on to developer as well,
Yeah.
because if we look at your overall DNA in here, this piece basically, this is your top 10. You heavily lead with relationship building. So let's touch on a couple of those as well. Number two is developer. Developer, again, relationship building theme in here. And developers love to see other people grow. They love to invest in other people as well. And they are typically good at recognizing, let's say, small little incremental improvements of people. They love to be able to be a guide. They're typical teachers, mentors as well. Um, any of that resonate with you? Anything ever happen in that area where you've maybe taught, mentored somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. In this case, it happens to be my daughter. I was talking with Lance about it before we got to the live here, but, she wanted to start a lemonade stand. And so we sat down and we talked about how to do that. We talked about traffic and, our street really doesn't get much traffic. So we said, well, maybe we could serve lemonade at fairs or, at events that are going on around town, farmers markets. And, it was through that process that we developed the strategy to do that. And, she's smart. This past weekend, she took off to the beach with her mother. So me and my buddy actually ended up running the lemonade stand. But the next one that we do, she'll be there. And my plan is to coach her through being an entrepreneur, what it means to earn a dollar, and the work that you have to put in order to make a living, especially when you're doing it for yourself. So that's one recent one that jumps out to me.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a perfect example here. And if we carry that out also into your professional network or environment, maybe there is a way where some people have kind of reached out to you for help or anything. And describe to me what, how does it feel to you when somebody reaches out and asks for you to help, and you're able to provide that help?
Oh, it's honestly an honor. I've had the benefit of working with a lot of really great leaders and rubbed elbows with some folks who have taught me a lot. You talk about collecting information. I've been able to do that. And it makes, just in the same way that someone comes to my desk and picks up a book that I'm crazy about and have read in a lot of cases several times, someone comes to me and asks for advice. The fact that I can lean on my memory and experiences that I've had working for folks and learning from leaders, and then pass that on to someone else who's not only going to hear it, but act on that information is really satisfying for me, and it's fulfilling.
Good, 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 good. All right, then I would say let's move on to your number 4, includer. Again, another relationship building theme in here. And includers want to make sure that everybody is included in the community or even in a decision as well. People high in includer, they hate clicks. The kind of, no, you're not my kind of guy. It's more of a, hey, everybody come in, diversity is good. Let's have a big community and we all talk about something, or we are all working on something together. So making sure that we have that one big community versus small little islands of clicks right there. What I wanted, number one, obviously, how does that resonate to you? And then when I think about you as a real estate agent, there is probably a lot of parties that are involved in the entire process. Um, how does this work when you're basically able to draw somebody in that maybe was left out initially or that was overlooked initially in a deal or something? How how would you describe that?
Sure. So for the first part, how it resonates with me, I mean, I go back to my childhood. I changed schools a lot. So I went from being, having friends, knowing people, and then moving schools. So I was in group, out group all the time, and I really pride myself on bringing people together. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I did that when I was a kid, just being friends with basically everybody at the school, and what that looks like today in my professional career. And more to your question is, how can we provide more value by bringing more people in? I really do believe if you bring the right people to the table, you can maximize the value delivered to whoever it is you're working with. So what that looks like on a real estate transaction might be, we can do a building inspection, but if I know roofers and I know plumbers and I know folks that know specific trades, I can bring them in on a transaction and actually do a deeper dive on a building from the folks who really know the things that are going to go wrong and can advise my client in a way where they can actually make an informed decision. Another example would be a company I used to work at. We did market research, B2B market research, and we had a team that would do consulting. It was a separate service. I just sold the market research. We would recruit professionals from around the country. This person who worked in our advisory team, they had a separate billable hour. I brought him into a deal to help one of our clients who was trying to figure out what questions should we be asking the folks that we're interviewing. Basically, put together a really good survey to get some good data. In this case, it was a qualitative interview that we were doing. So it was really helpful to bring him in. And at the end of the day, everybody was happy. My colleague was happy that I brought him in on the deal. The client was happy. They have a better survey that went out, and we ultimately were able to recruit a better, more specific recruitment pool and deliver what our client really wanted.
Awesome. I love this. This is and this is kind of additional value that goes beyond your just a job of being a real estate agent for commercial bank. This is actually making sure you have the client's best interest at heart. And then how can you offer your network that's already there, which also feeds into your input theme as well. This is input for the client that you're able to provide the right resources and the right people. And then who else do we need to include in the conversation here to make it a successful experience for everybody?
I find this really interesting, Jacob, because I think, a lot of times, I don't know if you guys have the same impression, but when we think of commercial real estate agents, I kind of picture like um, those really driven guys who are just sort of like, I'm going to get the deal and get out of my way. I want this thing to work. And, grr," and it sounds to me like, Ben, you're going to approach this from a different way,
Mm.
which I think is really powerful. And I think as we move forward with the way the world is going, collaboration is going to far outpace competition.
Absolutely.
And you're like, when I look at these strengths, Jacob, you could correct me if I get any of this wrong, but when I look at this, I'm like, oh my goodness, I would call this package like the collaboration package. I mean, it's got all this relational stuff, developer, the empathy that we haven't talked about yet. Like that is a pretty powerful package, I think, especially moving where the economy is moving over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, and to tag on to that, Lance, I remember the moment I decided I wanted to get in this business. I was doing some reading about, going into residential, getting into commercial, and I read this line, I'll never forget it. It said, "In commercial real estate, you are the connector." And when I read that, my mind was made up. I knew exactly what I was going to be doing. So what you just said is spot on. It's the heart of what I do. It's why I network as much as I do. I really do believe that there's a lot of value out there, and the folks that I meet with for coffee, we talk about that. How do you help clients? What are the problems that you solve? What would I listen for to understand that you're the person that I need to get in front of whoever it is that I'm talking to? Sometimes that's a client. Sometimes that's somebody else in my network that may have a challenge that they're looking to solve. So absolutely agree with that.
Awesome. Jacob, we've got about 5 minutes to go. Wait, yeah, 5 minutes to go. So how do you want to divide our time here at the end?
How are we looking with questions in the chat and the comments?
Very quiet.
Very quiet. Okay. Well, then we use the quiet time and talk about our last theme that we have in here.
Nice.
The last one we want to talk about today is empathy. And empathy is all about being able to understand the feelings and the emotions of other people. It sometimes maybe you walk into a room and you see something is wrong in here, something does not feel right. Being able to kind of identify that elephant in the room and then be able to speak to it. And with again going back to you being a real estate agent, I'm sure there is frequently concerns of buyers that are like, I'm reluctant to make a decision or something, but they don't really want to talk about it. Can you remember a situation where you kind of sensed something before it actually was brought on the table, before it came up, and then you were able to resolve that?
I think the way I'll answer that, my career has involved a lot of cold calling. So when I close my eyes or make a phone call, I don't know what the other person's body language is. All I can do is interpret their voice and base that off the situation. And so the way that I framed my cold calling throughout my career was really based on an empathetic approach. And it's this: you're calling someone who's not expecting your call. You're giving them a name that they've probably never heard before. You've never spoken with them. You're giving them a company name that they've most likely never heard of before. And then you're pivoting to a pitch where you're trying to sell them a service on a call that they weren't expecting with someone that they're not even sure if they should know. And what that led me to do, what that realization was, to totally change the way that I cold called, where I would lay down in front of them on the phone and let them know, hey, listen, we've never spoken before. You don't know me from Adam, but I'd love to have just a couple minutes of your time to talk about the reason I'm calling. That's one variation of it, but really the empathy comes in understanding that the person you're talking with is someone who's, not expecting your call. On a day-to-day basis, the way that I use empathy to make deals happen is, one misconception about commercial real estate in relation to residential is that everyone talks about residential being very emotional. Well, the reality is it's still emotional on the commercial end. It's just dressed up in numbers. So understanding that helps you understand the way that the buyer or in the seller might act. There are some times where I need to deliver information to one of my clients and say, listen, we've got a really good tenant here. This company's listed on the NASDAQ, but they want $67,000 in a check from you to get the space up to where it needs to be in order to take this lease. And you have to be prepared for how they're going to take that. Nobody wants to write a check for that much. It's pausing, acknowledging that, and then explaining to them the options that we have. And that all revolves around empathy. And again, we're talking numbers, but at the end of the day, on the other end of that line is a human, is a person who has feelings, and it's connecting through that I think you actually get more deals done.
Yeah, I think what you just said is that could have saved me a lot of trouble when I first started out selling here in Greenville, South Carolina, walking up with my PowerPoint presentation like, "Hey guys, I got something to offer." It did not work well because I exactly failed at what you do naturally, which is, hey, understand who you're talking to. How do they take it if somebody approaches you? Yeah, I should have taken some sales lessons from you, my friend.
It's funny, Ben, because I've always joked that I've always felt like the best salespeople have low emotional quotient. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean maybe they don't naturally feel when other people are uncomfortable. But it sounds like in your case, you have to basically approach this from a different standpoint of if there's somebody who's uncomfortable, you're acknowledging that and almost empathizing with them, then to take the conversation further. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. It's a common misconception even among salespeople. Some who have even seen success, but success doesn't always mean that you're doing it the right way. And that's this idea that you have to, be dogged about it. You have to get in there, you have to be sharp, you have to constantly put the pressure back on the prospect. And I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think at the end of the day, the result that you want is something that leads to a happy client and a happy customer. I tell this to tenants when I talk to them when I'm representing landlords. Look, we don't want to put a deal in front of you here that means that, you're going to struggle with your business 2 years down the road. We want to make sure that you're happy. We don't want you to resent leasing this space. That's not the same as, driving at a deal and we're going to get the best terms for my client no matter what. It's making sure that we're putting something that's sustainable, not only for my client, but also for the tenant that would be inhabiting the space. So completely agree with you there, Lance.
It's cool. Jacob, do you mind stopping your screen share for a second? And then so we don't have any questions. I have a couple of questions though, so I'm going to be the audience for now. Um, Ben, you said this is the first time you've done this Clifton Strengths assessment. What do you feel like you've already experienced from the time you decided to do the assessment to now having Jacob just sort of give you this extremely high level thing that I know you guys are going to develop further? And Jacob, I'll have you speak to that in a second. But what have you experienced so far, Ben, in doing this?
Oh, just more wonder. It's given me a way to view myself, and my number one is ideation. So I think a lot. So getting this data and being able to overlay that with experiences I've had, essentially what we just did today. I mean, being able to go back down memory lane and see how some of this connects with what I do. It's really it's got me thinking. It's got me thinking, and I know nobody watching or either of you are surprised to hear that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, Jacob, can you describe for people who watch this um, what happens now? Because you and Ben are actually going to do some work together. Give us just the overview there.
Yeah. So what we did was a very, very high level, basically the 101 of his top five. We'll actually get together for about an hour and a half and do a deep dive in all of our top 10 in here. And then after we have that name it and claim it section done, we'll see that we can dive into the aim it piece as well. So how can you actively now work on consciously applying those talents and starting to develop them into a strength? Right now, they are terms, they are a language that we start developing. And now the next step is, okay, how can we deploy strategies for you to actively lean into those where you naturally have fun? I mean, when you were talking about having ideas, you light up. So how can we use more of that to bring more fun and joy to what you're doing?
It's awesome. All right. This has been great. I am grateful, Ben, for you to be here. We've had a very quiet viewing audience today. That's cool. A lot of this stuff ends up getting seen by people in recordings as well. So this is exciting to be able to have this footage. Of course, now you have you can go back and watch this. We can give you the transcript. You could write your own story, Ben, from this thing. This would be great. Jacob, thank you for walking us through all of that. Do you have any thoughts for our audience if they're contemplating Clifton Strengths? What do you think they should do to take these first steps?
So I think when you start getting the results. One of the important pieces is number one, read the general description, which is just a paragraph, and then see where does this actually apply to me? Where do I see myself in there? Kind of highlight some of the words that resonate with you, and then see, okay, now if this resonates with me, how can I do more of this? That's the simplest way.
It's good. Yeah, very simple. I like that very much. All right. Next week, we are going to be talking about how to use CliftonStrengths within your organization. I'm going to attempt to share this picture. Let's see if this works. There we go. It worked. That's next week, July 28th. And I think, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you and I are going to actually put our two talent profiles together and talk about what that looks like as a team. Is that correct?
So that was our off week, the 5th week of the month. That's the one thing that we have to wait. So right now we just have 4 Tuesdays this month. So this will be the last episode of this month. But we'll get to our collaboration and friction report.
Okay. Whenever that is, come back next Tuesday and get something. How about that for a promise? That'll be great. All right. Appreciate you guys. Hope everybody has a really great week. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Thanks,
Thanks
guys.
Jacob.